there's some part of you that's just buried under all the other expectations, conditioning, and weight of everything that you've picked up over your lifetime. And so it's like all of a sudden you're like, yeah, oh my gosh, that's me. And I was trying to be something else. I was trying to be who I'm not. Most people don't really know what self-love is, because if you don't know what your self is and what energy you carry, you're loving something that you're not. You're trying to be what you're not. You're loving the possibility of being someone else instead of focusing on really what you are.
Welcome back to another episode of The Fertile Dark. I'm your host, Daniel, and today I'm really excited to be diving into the fascinating world of human design, which is a system that blends ancient wisdom with modern insights to help us understand the uniqueness of our energetic blueprint that we bring into the world. To help with this, my guest today is Amanda O'Donovan, a trailblazer in self-discovery and whose unconventional journey has moved her through social work and mental health advocacy, traditional Chinese medicine, all with a deep commitment to understanding the nuance of human nature. And in this conversation, we explore how human design can help us trust ourselves, reduce resistance, and move through life with more alignment and ease. So get ready. I hope you enjoy this thought-provoking discussion as much as I did. So let's dive in. I'm really curious from your perspective, for someone who has never heard of human design, what would be the benefit of them exploring it on their own?
Right away, the first thing that comes to mind is relationships. It's like, whether it's your relationship with yourself or with your kids, your parents. I know, being a 40-year-old, that we carry so many wounds that we just sort of put on our parents. And now I realize none of that is theirs to hold or to be put on them either. So my relationships with my parents have improved. And then it could be even with yourself, your relationship with yourself. Whatever it is, I would say relationships. It can give you a lot of insight into how you relate with others and how to strengthen those bonds. Um,
I love that. That's such an interesting place to go, I think, that we do carry so many wounds and we do so often give those to our parents. I think maybe in our just effort to explain, like make some meaning of it and say, this is my experience. But I am curious though for you. And I mean, I'd love to get into some of the more nuances of this system, but I'm curious for you, the way that you found your exploration of human design helping you to be more connected to yourself and also deepening some of those relationships with others.
right away, I think when I looked into human design, I felt immediately seen in my bare self, like the barest version of sort of my soul, I guess. Not this vehicle, not this body, but like this thrashing sort of passenger who's always been not content in life and all that. I suddenly felt like the spotlight just like beamed right on that part of myself, that whatever it is that is my identity. And I felt really seen for the first time. Like I felt seen before, but this was like that really kind of raw being seen. And then I had to start to pick up the pieces of what is self, what I thought was me isn't. And that was terrifying and destabilizing. It was like, well, what am I? I'm not something that can just be made into anything. I actually come with a design, I come with certain imprints, and then I come with openness too, that where I take in the other. And so it helped me identify less with my openness, which is where I would be affected by my relationships, and then more so trusting what I always knew was sort of there. It's like for most people, when you go into and look at your human design at first, it's not really, it's surprising to an extent, but maybe not, because you already know who you are. There's some part of you that's just buried under all the other expectations, conditioning, and weight of everything that you've picked up over your lifetime. And so it's like all of a sudden you're like, yeah, oh my gosh, that's me. And I was trying to be something else. I was trying to be who I'm not. And as destabilizing as that felt, it immediately started opening me up to a real relationship with myself for the first time, because I wasn't pretending to be something that I'm not and thinking, yeah, I have lots of energy. Yeah, I have lots of this and that to give people, but I don't. I have something else. And I sort of was rejecting that in the goal to try to be whole. try to complete what you think you're lacking. There's this thing in Human Design Raw, who's the founder of Human Design, he talks about, or the transmitter of this knowledge, but he talks about most people don't really know what self love is, because if you don't know what your self is and what energy you carry, you're loving something that you're not. You're trying to be what you're not. You're loving the possibility of being someone else instead of focusing on really what you are. And so it just clicked for me in that way. And I was like, gosh, how can I even enter into the correct relationships if I'm not coming from a place of who I am? If I'm trying to be this or that, then I'm chasing things. And so it stemmed from there. Also, with my other friends and family, it really helped, because if people have really quirky traits that bother you, pet peeves and things like that, I mean, I've always been somebody who looks at understanding. Like, as a kid, I was the sibling who would always understand mom and dad, who would always explain to my brother and sister, well, maybe dad is, he's being a jerk, but like maybe you could see it from his all that kind of stuff, which they particularly didn't love, that I was like that. It was, oh, Amanda always has an excuse, like there's too much understanding. And I do understand there is sometimes I have too much understanding, but it kind of grew and grew and grew to a point where I would keep these things to myself, where I would look at people and be like, gosh, they're really bothering me. They're irritating me with the way that they are, but they're consistently like that. And what I have found in some of the human design charts is that some of this is in their nature, and that there are self-centered people, and there are people who have egos, and there are people who have all of these things that we generally in society look at as like negative human qualities or less desirable human qualities. And I've learned to love that too, where it's like, gosh, yeah, it really gets under my skin. Fair. But those people are who they are, and they're here for a reason. They didn't get imprinted with this selfishness because it's a wrong quality to have. It's in the world because it's part of human experience. So it's like, it may not be great to like be friends with a person who could be self-centered, but but there's probably a binary, a balance there. Like, human design says everything in the universe is a binary. So there's not, there's one extreme and then there's the other, and it's a binary universe. So we have that possibility to bring in. So that's really expanded my acceptance in my relationships, and also grown my relationships when I was, yeah, like you said, blaming my parents quite a lot. And it's a natural phase. But yeah, by the time I was 30, I was like, I got to get out of this. I have to find another way to deal with the pain and the conditioning that you experience. It's not really to be put all on them. Yeah.
Yeah, so it sounds like there's this real ability to connect to that deep self within, and also be able to find yourself in more right relationship, more wholesome, healthy relationships with the people around you. But then also to have more compassion for people who maybe ruffle your feathers a little bit, come across in a way that just doesn't sit very well.
Exactly. And it's hard because, again, it's like there's this idea of not self in human design, which is how we come to understand what isn't us, but how we experience the other through us, through our openness, so to speak. And so when our minds start to, or they just do control our lives, generally, all of us tend to make mental choices. We go this or that and we mull it over in our minds. A lot of the time, the mind is speaking from the openness in the chart. So you can start to notice, like, okay, I have an undefined solar plex. I might be avoiding confrontation. There's certain ways that you'll notice over time that your mind will speak to you to get you to take action on things that might not be yourself. And so it becomes a really interesting experience of observation in what is called like your human design experiment, whatever that is for you, where you're watching, where you're open in your design, and what your mind will tell you to sort of get you to take action to try to be who that, to try to fulfill what you don't have. There's sort of, it's like a genetic imperative. It's like this idea that what you don't have, you want. It doesn't mean that you need to have it and be consistent all the time. That's the part of the mind sort of way of making you feel secure. It's like if you don't have a defined throat, we should act like we do. We should act like that so that we have the full chart. We want everything. But that's not realistic. And so your idea is like you're living your life from your definition and you're experiencing life through your openness. And we get confused because our minds often speak through the openness very loudly. You don't have root definition. Oh, you better get up and do something and create some pressure and start something and get motivated. And so you'll notice that, for example, people who are like projectors or manifestors who don't have sacral energy, they'll be exhausting themselves because they're taking in life force energy and amplifying it, but they themselves don't output life force energy. So there's this real challenge where it starts to feel like it's you. Like, I'm a projector, I go out into the world, I'm like, it's really hard to differentiate if that's me or the world because the world is energized. So it's really tricky sometimes when you're going in the world, it feels like it's you. You know, it's like, yeah, I'm a thinker. I can think. But maybe you're just somebody who's amplifying someone else's thinking and you're not actually the one putting out the thoughts. You're receiving them and making them bigger.
That's such an interesting idea. I love this. I mean, just from that, there's this exercise that I'll sometimes do because I feel like sometimes, and I don't know if this is connected, but sometimes I feel like when I'm in a relationship with another person, just like a social relationship, and there's this experience of feeling or thinking in a certain way, and then connecting to that and saying, like, is that actually mine? Or
Yes,
is that
exactly.
from someone else? Like, has someone like hooked that into me? And, like, there's a foreignness to that feeling of, like, as you learn to differentiate it and say, "Oh, that actually doesn't belong to me," and then going through that process of, I'm actually gonna, like, kind of purge myself of those hooks. I'm gonna burn those cords out and say, like, "No, that's not my."
Exactly, exactly. It sounds like that would be a very good practice for any of your open centers or undefined centers. I do encourage people to do that. Like once you get your chart and look at your basic authority and strategy and type, then you can start looking at all different 9 centers and look at where you're open. And that's where it kind of gets kind of fun in the experiment too. It's like what you're talking about is a great exercise to do for any of your openness and to really say, yeah, I took in someone's idea. Like maybe, yeah, I do that a lot. It's like, oh, someone has a great idea. Ooh, I want to go on vacation. And it's like, suddenly I want to go on vacation. And, you don't know. And so it becomes very difficult at times to, yeah, sort it out. It's not always clear. And I love that you're doing that because it really does require some time alone to decondition. Because if you're I mean, we're always being deconditioned even by the transits, but those people in our lives, those are the ones that have such an impact on us, our closest relationships. So getting, yeah, space from those people, just being alone and then noticing suddenly all those feelings are gone, maybe. Suddenly all those thoughts might be gone or not as strong in their feeling. Like I've definitely had that where I'm with someone and it's like when I'm with them, I'm all into it. They might be an ego person and they're really, you know, giving me a good feeling. And then suddenly I walk away and I don't have that sort of ego boost anymore. And I'm like, I'm not sure, and that's where it's really helpful to do that activity. Because when you leave and when you separate, where the conditioning sticks is when you don't know that was theirs and this is mine. And then, like you said, you just carry it. You might carry it and actually make a decision with it and then you're living someone else's life. You know, that's how this sort of not self scenario can kind of play out, where it's like, I got the idea, or I got the energy, or I got the emotional hookup, or whatever you needed from someone else, but it's not your path to take. It's a lot of people find that in the beginning of human design, it can be very destabilizing because you might realize that you were on a track that was very far off where you should be. And it's very upsetting and scary.
Yeah. It's interesting. I guess I'm thinking about my own journey up to this point, and I was talking with someone the other day about the way that kind of the overculture conditions the thought process of identity, especially in the Western world. I taught high school for a number of years, and one of the things that we talked about occasionally was this question that students get at that age of, what do you want to be when you grow up? And that it's always associated with some kind of career field. And we worked together, not all the time, but occasionally, to change the question to, who do you want to be when you grow up? Where the career then becomes a delivery system from the place of being, rather than defining myself through this job that I have of, oh, like, like, who are you is more of a what do you do versus like a, what is the fundamental space that is uniquely yours that you occupy within this world. And so it's interesting to see that through this lens of a system that is what feels like there to help with that discovery process.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's an interesting thing too, because each type comes in with all of these curiosities about either the world or themselves. And for the most part, the majority of people are generator types, which are energy types, and they have this built-in need to know who they are, to discover who they are. It's a little bit self-involved. It's with purpose. It's they have a sacral definition, and that sacral makes a response, and they're here to go, "Oh my gosh, my sacral responded. That's what I'm supposed to do." And then they go. And so it's knowing oneself is like the whole journey for, 60-70% of the population. And then the non-energy types, they're not really interested because they're interested in, who are you? Who is the other? Who is the generator, for example? What are they all about? And so it becomes an interesting thing that for most people, that question, and I absolutely love that. It's so, because in high school, it's all about, yeah, creating identity through how much service or what good use you are. It's like, you're going to be a good thing we can use. And that's why it really triggers a lot of generators, because in seven centered times, a little bit human design history, if we go back, hundreds of years ago to when projectors didn't exist and it was just generators and manifestors. And generators are the life force of the planet. They're the workers, so to speak. They're the builders. And then the manifestors, they don't have the sacral energy. So they were leading and they were directing the generators what to do, telling them what to do. But now in modern times, we're nine centered, we're evolved. Generators aren't here to be told what to do. They can manage their energy themselves now. They don't need the manifestors to tell them. They need to find out, who am I? And it's a really tricky thing because for thousands of years they were told what to do. So now you're waking up in this time and it's like, I'm a generator, who am I? But it's not going to, the answer to that is not coming from the mind. It's coming from the sacral response. So you're the passenger, your consciousness is the passenger in a generator vehicle, and you get to ride wherever that sacral responds. And it may not be where you like, might not be where the mind wanted to go. And so that's why this example that you give is so wonderful, but at the same time a challenge, because it's like you put it into the mental space. It's like, what do you want to be? And all of a sudden, everyone's in their mind going, I could be a doctor, I could be a this, I could. And it's not grounded in their vehicle at all. It's like just completely, well, I could do anything, I guess. And it becomes a stressful thing. At least it was stressful for me because I was like, my choice is anything. Well, how am I unique? How am I going to find what fits for me? And, kids and people do that, stumbling and bumbling as they go. They find out, who they are. How much better could it be if we start when, our kids are little, or whenever we become aware of this, when a generator becomes aware that the sacral is where they get their direction from, how do they move their vehicles, how they decide where to go, not by someone telling them, because they absolutely do not want to be told, you have to do this work and you have to build this and you have to do that. And it's like, they don't, that was back then, and so You see now, like a lot of generators, which is why in human design, generators need to be asked questions, ideally yes or no. Because if you ask a generator a yes or no question, the potential that they might get a sacral response to a yes, do you want to eat a sandwich? Do you want to go outside? Do you want to ride a bike? Do you want like, and so then they can start to be like, and like all the sounds can start to come back. Maybe they were buried because someone told you, like, you shouldn't make sounds. It's rude. You should say yes and no. And saying yes and no puts everything in the mind. And so it's like, we got to go back to the body. You can make the grunts, like encourage your generator kids, make the grunts, the groans, the X, the yucks, all the like sounds, because that sacral is a literal drum. It creates a reverberation in the vehicle that's like, that's what that vehicle is here to do. I can't keep asking my kids or friends that are generators, um, questions that don't have yes or no, at least some of the questions having yes or no, simple responses so that they can not have to go into the thinking mind. Once it goes into the thinking mind, it's great. It's great for strategizing, calculating, figuring out numbers, and the mind is an incredible thing. But for it to decide where this vehicle goes, it's crap. It's crap at that. For it to not really say it in the best way, but it's not. The mind is so powerful, but it's not the driver. It's not the driver. And so there's this thing in human design that it really can help understand sort of the situating oneself, is that you have the vehicle, imagining like your body is a car, and it has the driver. And the driver is what is called the magnetic monopole, which is a sort of magnetic pull that sits inside your G center. And it's a trajectory that is your life. It's like your life trajectory. And your authority comes through that. So, whatever your authority is, let's just use the generator. Their authority is sacral, it's through a response. So, everything in that person's life, wherever their trajectory is, will come through a response, not through the thinking mind. The thinking mind is the passenger, and it gets to watch and experience the life and learn about the life and try not to strangle the driver by saying, "Oh, we're going to go down this path now because we want to feel like, we're defined, or we want to have that experience." It's like getting the passenger, the mind, to just chill out a bit. And instead of trying to have all the answers or know where we're going, to just enjoy the ride, so to speak. But it's hard. It's hard to just trust that the body is going to make the choices. And so that's why I kind of say it's like a sacred marriage, because your mind, it doesn't always want to be married to the body's path. And that's a lot of tension can show up in our mind versus body experience, where the personality wants to go one way, but the body is going the other way. And I see a lot of people get caught up in that tension point in the sacred marriage, so to speak.
Yeah. I really love that idea of the body as the vehicle. I feel like there's like so many different opportunities to explore there. I do like, just as we've been talking about this though, I do notice a lot of this really specific language that you use to describe the human design experience. And I wondered if it'd be okay for us to explore some of that a little bit.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking at my human design chart over here on the side and
Cool.
like kind of following along a little bit. And
I
but
know the language. I apologize to anybody. Human design has its own sort of language, and it does take time to learn it all. So, yeah, I go on. What do you have?
was
Yeah.
so I guess I wonder, for someone who is a very first, like they go online and they put in their birthday and they put in their place of birth, and then they get this real, like the first time you look at it, it looks kind of strange, like
It's so strange.
this really interesting image of shapes and lines and arrows and numbers. And then there's all these words that come with it, like the type and profile and authority. And where would you recommend that a person begins as they have this chart in front of them?
Yes, exactly. Great. I would just start with type, strategy, and authority. Essentially, in some way or another, depending on who you are, that might be all you need in your human design experiment. Some people are needing very little because, again, this is when you're learning human design, it's all mental until you start going into the experiment and then trying it for yourself, because you have to try it for yourself. There's no way to get the knowledge only mental. But I do find it sometimes tricky because if you go too deep too fast, you can start using human design against yourself and think, so it's not really like a place of freedom. You still have to get out control of the mind at some point. You have to be the passenger watching everything. And then that's how you learn a bit more about it. But definitely starting with type, strategy, and authority. Those are the biggest places to look at because type will tell you whether the way that your aura functions. And it's such a huge help to understand the way your aura functions because it's how you meet people right away, how you meet the world, how you engage with the world and the people around you. So if you're a generator, you're an open enveloping aura type. A projector is somebody who focuses and penetrates into the core of another to get that information. Manifestors are repelling or protective aura types. And then the reflector is a sampling, kind of like Teflon aura type, just lets sort of things slide off. So understanding your aura type right off the bat can be a huge relief because it's like you'll either find out you're a generator and you're an energy type, or a manifester who's an energy type but doesn't have sacral energy. So you might be like, that's why I have those pulses of energy and then crash, pulse and crash, pulse and crash. So it can immediately give you some relief and understanding about how your basic energy works and how you interact with the world. And then the strategy for each type helps you, again, function better in relationships and in the world. Projectors are here to be invited. So you can explore that in your life. You can be like, do I invite people too much? And am I not waiting for invitations enough? Generators are waiting to respond. So similarly, it's like, oh, am I initiating all the time? Am I not waiting for life to come to me? And so it's like my strategy as a generator is to wait for something to come to me and then respond. And then a manifester is to inform, to initiate. And so they're one of the types that we all kind of try to act like, is that the initiators. Oh, I'm going to go out there. I'm going to start something. I'm going to do it. And so all of these, knowing your strategy and your type. And then, of course, the authority, because everyone's authority is unique. And so you get your type, you know how you interact, you look at your strategy and you're like, oh, I might try that. And then you look at your authority, and the authority is how you make decisions. It's how you start to begin to demote the mind into its proper place, which is reconfigured. Thousands of years ago, when we were seven centered beings, had seven chakras, we were mental beings. We were making mental decisions, and all of the power of the ajna was tops back then. So it was like you listened to an outside authority, and if you followed that guru, it would probably work out for you. And that's the way that it kind of worked pretty well. But now everyone has their own authority. So no one can have an authority above you. It's completely dispersed into each individual. Not to say there aren't experts and guides, but your decision to go with whatever expert or coach or guide would be made by your own authority. So you wouldn't be like, so and so told me to go to this doctor and it'll all work out, unless your vehicle responded or whatever the authority is. So the authority comes in, and it's part of the experiment that brings you to putting your mind in an observing place. And then it can do the calculating for you whenever you want it to, and do all that fun strategizing piece, but to sort of make less decisions. And the mind is also our greatest vessel for doing what you and I are doing right now, for getting what is our life experience out and communing with people so that we can express to each other. So it's like the mind is really helpful because it's a way that we get to express what is called our outer authority, which is our personality, which is what we share with others. Whereas the mind doesn't need to be busy making health decisions for this vehicle, if that makes sense. It's like leave the choices to the vehicle and let the mind do the strategizing, analyzing, and the expression with others and the communing with others. And so you kind of get to this place where you realize, oh, those are the three basic steps to get to communion, healthier relationships, and maybe some more satisfaction, some more joy, maybe.
It's so interesting you bring that up. I'm thinking about a challenging experience that I've been just wrestling with recently. So in my chart, my type is generator,
Okay.
and my strategy is responding, and then my authority is emotional.
Hey.
And one of the biggest things that I've been struggling with is like the waiting to receive, where I feel very much like I'm so impatient. I just am ready for this thing to be done. I like it's hard for me to just sit back and be open and receive and wait because I feel that compulsion to make things happen. And so I'm curious from your perspective, like how does the human design piece maybe fit in that kind of scenario for someone who is the generator type?
Yeah. First of all, that's hard. Yeah, I know. Generators. I mean, we know we love them. They're like, we need them. They're the life force. It's incredible. But the waiting is a really, really hard thing. Yeah. And I think it's hard, the conditioning, because I do challenge people who are generators to really sit in that discomfort and even to write down like what your mind is saying to you about whatever it is. Like, it's like, oh, you should get up and do this. But why is it saying it? Like, what is its strategy? Like make a game out of it. It's like, oh, what's your strategy? And so the mind can, if it doesn't work, it'll try the opposite strategy. You'll notice, right? It goes to that extreme. And if you don't stop waiting, it'll try the totally opposite thing. And it'll keep trying things until you stop waiting. And so for some people, I'm like, just write it down or say it, even record it because it's funny. It's funnier when you say it out loud because it becomes even more ridiculous. When it's going crazy in the mind, it's like, I've done it for myself too, where it's like, instead of getting up and taking that action, even though it's kind of driving me wild, it's like, I'll say it out loud. Oh, my mind wants me to do this or I'll never survive, because for some people it's survival. And then you're like, wow, that's interesting. So you start to be able to learn about, like as a generator, I try to attract them into learning about themselves. So even in that moment, you can learn more about where you're coming from in your not self. You can learn about where you're coming from in your emotionality. You could learn about what your mind is hooked on because your mind is definitely hooked on something different than someone else's. And so you can be like, why does my mind want me to stop waiting so bad? Is it my not self? Like wherever you're open, is it my not self root? Is it my not self head, ajna? Like any of the openness can be the next step. It could be, if I can't stand waiting, where in my openness did I get conditioned to do this, to have this experience? Yeah, and generators also have like a really tough time maybe as well, because if there's a lack of trust in that sacral response, it can also make it very tough, which, it's hard to trust the authority. Like I said, I think all of us, like I'm a splenic authority and I know exactly what it is, but to get to it and to trust it before my mind comes in with a better plan it's fast. It's like I have to be there and trust it before the mind comes in, and that's like a millisecond. So there's so many times I don't trust it because the mind will just be there with its better solution, but it can't ever come up with the solution. So the more that I sometimes talk to myself as well as if I'm a different person, like, Amanda, you really want to get out there and start doing that, like that kind of conversing with myself. Like I'm the passenger, so I can converse with myself in that way. My mind is doing something while I watch it, that kind of scenario where it's like, I'm not this. What is that? Not self voice. That isn't me. So it's like, I can't wait because that voice that isn't even me is running my system. And maybe, you've had that conditioning for many years and carried it on in your life, like a lot of us do at this point. We have many running programs. It's like it could have been coming from someone like a teacher or a parent or anyone like that. Like I definitely had cleared out many voices that were teachers, parents, and this is well before human design when I started to just notice what would pass through my mind. And I was like, that's not my voice. That's not my words. And then, come to realize I have a totally open ajna and all these other factors of taking in people deeply and then having these ideas. And it's like, whoa, wait, that wasn't my voice. That wasn't my idea. And I'm still repeating it. So it's a hard process, but I would say, yeah, if you're a generator and you can't wait, if it really becomes, yeah, a challenge and you don't wait, then you'll see what happens. And I would say be open to those mistakes too, because the reality is you're going to keep making mental decisions for a while because you have to figure out what it even looks like to wake up to the fact that you're making those mental decisions. So yeah, I try to laugh about it. I think that's one of the ways. Oh, I didn't listen to myself and now I stubbed my toe or something. Or I have
Well,
a stomach
yeah.
ache or something.
Well, it sounds like there's a lot of mindfulness, but also like a good opportunity for some humor and just some laughter in the process of.
Yeah, I think, yeah, that's my thing too. Like I always have to bring humor if I'm not laughing every day, or sometimes going from crying to laughing, because I have to use humor as an avenue for this, because also I know this, I have one life, I have one experience in this vehicle, and I just can't take it so seriously all the time. And it's one of my things now. I'm like, if I'm taking life too seriously, that's also a sign that I'm not relaxed in my experiment. I'm not relaxed in the process. It's just, I don't want to override my emotional experiences, but it's like, I don't want to, yeah, be distracted and be thinking that, I'm not on the right path, and having my mind berate me, essentially, not allowing that to occur anymore.
Yeah. I was actually, it was interesting. I was just sitting with this yesterday, this experience of the wanting something and struggling with the weight. And there is that real struggle in there. And in sitting with it, there was like this sacred dark kind of experience of like in the noticing, in the being with the struggle. Like there is something deep and profound that's happening here in the way that it's allowing change to happen, allowing something within to emerge that is, it needs time, it needs space before it can be fully present.
That's incredible. Coming from someone that's an emotional, that's very beautiful, because emotionals kind of struggle a lot too, because they're the ones who have to wait even more sometimes. So you're a generator, but you're an emotional. so so it's like, sorry to say, but you're gonna have to wait even longer.
That's great.
I mean, I don't know. But it's true. It's like the emotional process to me is so beautiful. Again, like the majority of the world is emotionals and generators. I think like 65% of the authority is emotional. So it's like it's the dominant authority, and then generators are the dominant type. So if you think about it, most of the world's probably emotional generators, and there's a lot of waiting, and the emotional wave, as you know, because you live it, the hope pain cycle that has to occur before clarity is found. And I know sometimes the emotional process can be a week, it can be months, it can be overnight, but it's usually at least overnight, if not much longer than that, sometimes a year. Um, and but I'm not an emotional, and what I do appreciate about the process of having to wait that I get to witness all these people around me go through is that they get to come to a truth at the end of that. They go through this wave, they go through the hope. And it's like, I'm going on the hope. I'm so excited. I'm so whatever it is. And then that starts to come down. And then the pain starts to kick in. And then you're under the wave now. And it's like, I don't even know what the purpose of existence is. And like it's the pain of the emotional wave. And then it comes back up again. And at some point between the binary of hope and pain, there's like clarity. And whatever that means to each emotional individual, it's not like suddenly like a light bulb turns on necessarily, but it's like you figured something out. You came to some truth through that emotional hope to pain life. And every time it's painful, but every time I see someone go through that and they come to the emotional clarity, that's a depth that I could never have of living what it is to go through the emotionality, to be able to handle and produce emotionality. I'm exhausted by emotionality sometimes. Like at the end of the day, my kids and I create an emotional charge together. I am not defined and neither are they, but when we're together, we have emotional energy and it's exhausting. So I look at people like yourself and the majority of the authorities out there being emotional, and it is a huge challenge because waiting, it's like the opposite of what an emotional wants to do. You can kind of think of it like that. It's like, because I have to wait, I don't want to. It's like this sort of dynamic. But I, as someone who doesn't have to go through those waves and only amplifies them and experiences other people's waves, I think, what a beautiful opportunity to be able to have and go through that emotional depth. And then when you come out through the other side, what you share is something just, I'm always touched by a lot of the emotionals that come through their process and then share and have that expression of what it is like to go through the hope pain cycle and then come to some sort of clarity. It takes a long time sometimes and it's arduous. And I look at it and I go, oh, I don't know if I can do it. But yeah, on the other hand, yeah, in the mind, it's very hard waiting.
I'd agree with that. Yeah.
It's yeah, and the emotionality, like, do you know what does it say what channel or does it show on the chart what emotionality that you
Solar
have?
plexus.
Yeah. Is it connected to your root or throat? Like, do you see where?
I mean, that's a great question because I'm not
Yeah.
sure exactly how to find that
Okay,
on
cool.
here.
Okay. Yeah, no worries. I'm just curious. It
Yeah.
basically it would show a line that connects from your solar plex to another center. So there would be like a channel, so to speak, from the solar plex either to the bottom or to one of the other centers. And that's a whole nother thing too when we get into channels in human design is what creates your definitions. That's your life force energy, so to speak, that is your definition. So whatever channels you have in your chart, that's sort of what you bring to the world, so to speak. So
That
your
makes sense.
emotionality is what you bring. And on the
Yeah.
flip side, you can bring emotional chaos. And so it's like we need the emotional chaos so that we can work our way through it to finding that emotional truth. But yeah, there's always different ways that it gets experienced. Like we look at the world right now and there's all this emotionality and I think yeah, there's a fair amount of emotional chaos that emotional people don't realize they're putting out. Not you, but I mean I don't know.
Well,
But yeah.
it makes me think of one of my D&D groups where they were kind of chaos monsters, but I was the one running the game, and so I wonder if I was just fueling that chaos. And
Yeah, I've heard of the chaos monsters. That makes sense.
well, okay, so I wonder. Okay, so we've looked at the type, and we've looked at our strategy, and we've looked at
Yep.
authority. So then, where
Yeah.
would we go next? Like, what would be the next stage in understanding our human design journey?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Strategy, type, authority. And then I would move next to looking at all the centers. A lot of people don't know, and I didn't. When I got into human design in late 2019, I was still studying psychology and Eastern modalities through the lens that there were seven centers, chakras, that I was struggling to harmonize all of this. And when I found human design in 2019, I was blown away because there are now nine centers. We've evolved. I think it was in 1783, we evolved into nine centered beings. And that's when the formation of another type came about, which is the projector type. So before that, there were no projectors. It was just manifestors, generators, and the world just ran around that way. So I would say that the next step is to study and look at a bit through the centers because the solar plex and stuff like that separated. So we now have 2 extra centers, and each center is connected to biological functions, genetic functions, amino acids. You can go all the way down to it's your genetic code in the end, all of this. So when you're looking at the centers, you can look at, yeah, where you're defined and where you're undefined. So that's the next step. It's like, okay, I have this definition. This is where I teach from in life. This is where I am coming from. This is my nature. So, like for yourself, you're an emotional. Your solar plex is your nature. You're never going to get rid of emotionality. Actually, making it like trying to figure out emotionality, not even, it's like trying to intellectualize emotionality or why I'm up and down, those kinds of things. That's your nature. Your body will produce a chemical reaction, whether you like it or not, and you'll be thrust into a pain or hope wave. And that's just how it is. So it's this opportunity to start to understand the biological and functional qualities of each center. Like, for example, the root is the biological function of the adrenal glands and the production of adrenaline in the body. And when you think about it, the root is at the very bottom of the human design chart. It's that square at the very bottom, and it's the energy of like in order to start something, right, you need such force. It's like I need that booming force. So the root is a pressure center, and it creates pressure from the bottom of the design towards the throat. And then the head, which is the very top triangle, it's a mental pressure. So it creates pressure going down. And what we have is 2 pressure centers creating pressure towards the throat, where we can manifest what we are and express what we are and do what we do. So going through all of the centers can give you a really good sense of where is your nature and where can you trust and rely on, which is your definition. So like for yourself, you can rely on your energy and your life force because you create your own life force. You can rely on that. Anywhere you're open, you can't rely on that. If you have an undefined ajna, you can't rely on conceptualizing consistently. And so you have to learn how to be okay with being all over their place conceptually at times, losing your train of thought and wondering what happened, having a great idea and then it's gone. And you're like frustrated that it disappeared so fast, stuff like that. So it can really help you begin to really get into what I love is like the really more deconditioning process, where it's like, this is what the not self of my undefined identity, for example, would say to me to get me to try to be something I'm not. Maybe it would say, let's go over there because I think that person has the idea. Let's go over there because I think that I need to find the answer to that so I feel smart. Whatever the insecurity, in a way, you can look at your openness or your undefined areas as insecurities, because it's that for some reason your mind in the genetic imperative wants to fill that all in. And I think, yeah, that's where I really get excited when we go into the centers and really pick apart where each person is getting stuck on those repetitive thoughts or those not self thoughts that they really haven't figured out aren't them yet.
So, how would I know if my centers are defined or undefined? Because I know there's like a lot
Yeah.
of colors and
Yeah.
shapes and things. And so,
Exactly. I know it's so confusing. Thank you for asking that. So, if you're looking at the chart anywhere, I mean, I guess I can't say for all the charts, but for the majority of the charts on the sites I've seen, definition is colored in. They could be different colors. And then anywhere that the center is undefined, meaning it's white or lighter in color in that area. So that would give you right away. Anything that's defined should be colored in. And that's including the channels, which are the lines that connect a center to a center. A defined center connecting to a defined center creates what is called a life force channel. So that means that that's an energy that you bring and give to the world. So, for example, if you have the channel of struggle, like me, you bring crazy struggles, but also other things like life with meaning, finding purpose, stuff like that. Yeah, so anywhere you're more white or light is that's not you. That's where you take in the world. But here's where it's so exciting to go in there and clean out those centers, so to speak, is because when you clean out what you thought you were, you open up room to take in the world more and your relationships more in those undefined centers. And now, because you're not all caught up being like, that's me, you're actually seeing people for who they are because you're understanding, like my open ajna, I no longer constantly relate to all of the mental stuff as me. And now I can actually appreciate my friends who have mental definition in a totally different way, because if I spend 10 hours with someone and they're mentally defined, I now walk away with a really interesting conditioning experience. Instead of me being like, I had so many great ideas when I was with that person. And then I walk away and I'm so angry at myself for not being able to say it like that anymore. Like I can't think like that anymore when I'm not with that person. And now I feel like an idiot. That's totally open ajna, not self stuff. So now I can laugh at myself when I call myself an idiot because it's just not true. It's just what my not self mind wants me to, like, it will say that just so that I study harder, try to look smarter, you know? And this is where you're on another track trying to be defined versus accepting, oh, I just lost my train of thought, or let me check my notes, or I'll get back to you when I look that up. Like you don't have to be a knower, you don't have to be seen as somebody who feels like, you're incompetent or whatever is the case. So I think, yeah, it can really get into an interesting place when you clear out this sort of focusing on what you think is yourself, but it's not. And so you're not communing with people properly, in my opinion. You're not actually, on one hand, you're not sharing your true self because you're confused about who you are. So your outer authority is mixed. But at the same time, you're so busy trying to be that when someone comes along who's defined there, you're not taking them in and you're not seeing them, like, wow, you have a defined identity and or an undefined, wherever in your relationships where you match someone there. And you get to, like for me with my undefined sacral, I now get to understand someone else's sacral instead of thinking it's me, and then trying to do a lot of work and trying to build stuff and be busy and all that. It's like, well, now I can appreciate that person's sacral energy and I can help them manage it instead of trying to be it. And then you can really, yeah, come to love people more, come to love yourself more, because you're seeing that that's them, that's you, and then you're communing. That's, I guess, my ideal to all of this, is that when you clean out those centers of the gunk of the stories, you're less distracted trying to be who you're not, and then you can take those people in.
What are some things that help you in that cleaning out process? Because that's a really interesting way to describe that. I'm really curious how you would approach it.
Yeah. I guess it would depend on different centers. Like I said, with the ajna, I do a lot of, in the beginning anyway, I did a lot of inner work where I would just talk to myself about, like almost like I was a child, because I met Amanda when she was like in elementary school, afraid to not know the answer, terrified to be called on, because I thought, if I don't know the answer in the moment, I'm going to look like an idiot. Instead, and we're not allowed to use our notebooks, we're not allowed to use the textbooks, and so as a totally open ajna person, I was always scared that I would look stupid and someone would call on me and I wouldn't be able to speak in the moment. So now it's like I allow myself to look funny, even if my mind is like, wow, you're an idiot, and I'm like, okay, cool, sure, so but in other centers, for example, in my sacral, it's really hard getting away from people, having physical separation from people. And similar to what you were talking about earlier, really sitting in the discomfort and making myself, like putting myself in positions where I can't move, to force myself to rest, to force myself into a position where, like, get in the bath or do something where, yeah, it's almost like a no choice scenario, because I can get really caught up overdoing it and I'll be, not realizing, because of my sacral, undefined sacral, taking in the energy of everything around me, being like super efficient. I'm going to get all this done. And so, yeah, I'll try to essentially paralyze myself before I physically paralyze myself, like really paralyze myself on a physical. So I've heard other people do similar things. Like if you have an undefined root, you're somebody who can't really relax because you're always feeling the world's pressure. You're always amplifying the pressure of the world. So you feel like if I gotta get this done. And if I got that done, I can escape the pressure. But you're kidding yourself because you're an undefined root and you can never escape the pressure. You're here to learn how to deal with it. You're here to learn how to feel what it's like to feel the amplification and ignore it anyway. So I think at the end of the day, when you get to your undefined places, is like you can paralyze yourself, like some people do with the root, where they do like a coffee enema, for example. You can't move. You can't get up and run around and be busy. And you have to, you really have to be there and lay down and force the stillness. So some people, I haven't done that particularly, but some people find that if you're that type and you're physically can't stop, that paralyzing yourself in some way at the very beginning, at least to sort of get it in a groove. And then also having people around you, like if you have family and friends who live with you or who are around you, and you create these, open relationship to be able to say, like, I'll get my partner, he'll come in and be like, constantly telling me to stop, bringing my awareness to the overdoing it when I'm not aware. And it'll kind of snap me into it. And I'll step away, like if I'm overdoing the work at home or whatever is the case. And then for my undefined solar plex, I might use like a lot of essential oils for the emotionality. Getting stuck thinking that all of the emotions in the world were mine and then trying to self help fix them out of me was a spinning hamster wheel of distraction. So with that, yeah, I use a lot of essential oils to help me with the emotionality of what comes through. And then not, again, anything that comes through in my open centers, I just simply try not to relate to it. I simply try to say that's like something outside of me that's coming through, not me. And the more that I can convince, even if I'm still not self, even if I'm still making mental choices, I want to bring myself along for the ride anyway. I want to make sure that I understand. Yes, I'm overdoing it and I have to right now because my life isn't set up that way. It takes a while to turn your life around sometimes when you've been on another track and, set up a life where, for example, for me, I created a life where I have so much doing. And so one by one, I'm reducing the doing, but sometimes it takes a while. So you have to be in this sort of tricky balance state where it's like, I know I'm not completely where I want to be, but everything's perfectly fine. It's my life. It's supposed to be like difficult and challenging in this way. A lot of people say, I wish I had seen human design or woke up to it 1, 2, 3, 6 years ago. Whenever in their life they feel that they took on a lot of the conditioning, I find. Because I'll say, I wish I had human design before my kids were born. But it's people all have different reasons why they wish they had human design before. And I think that's a really interesting thing too. It's like maybe you should look at that. Like, why do you wish you had human design at that time in your life? Because it was hard, because that was the time that you were the most, in hindsight anyway, feeling the most conditioned and needed to break free. But you found human design now because now's the right time. Not then. it's now. But yeah, I don't know. Like I think with certain levels of deconditioning besides the paralyzing and certain treatments, like I said, that I personally do with oils, I think it's just a lot of that slow back and forth where it's like, yep, I made a mistake. It's okay. Yep, I'm using my mind every day. And that's, I think, why the humor to me is it saved me from all the weird stuff that you see yourself do.
Yeah, well, I just even in reflecting on that, so I have an undefined root. So
Okay.
I guess some of what's really resonated with me just in this conversation so far has been the power that humor can play. Because I do spend so much time like taking in all of that external pressure to be or to do in a certain way. And there are times in my day where I'll stop and realize, like, wow, I just feel so intense and so serious, like all the time. And I don't like, I feel like I need to just relax and laugh and
Yeah.
just be present in this really light-hearted way. And so
Beautiful.
I'm really appreciating and resonating with the need for humor in a world that feels so intense all the time.
I know. It really does. And it's like, oh, take this seriously. Take this seriously. And I say that about human design. Like I'm guilty because I do sometimes I have a defined route. So I'm just going to say I'm allowed to pressure our people. But that's what I do. I bring pressure. I bring pressure. And so like even with my partner and he's an undefined route. So sometimes he's like, chill on the pressure. Because what you're here to do as an undefined root is to be wise about pressure because you don't have the capacity to produce your own adrenal rhythms. You're going to take in adrenal rhythms from someone else. And it's like, yeah, it would potentially lead to bad things for the vehicle if you keep acting on that all the time. It's like, if I just check this off the list, I'll be free. If I just get that done, I'll be free. And it is hard because to be undefined, like I'm undefined in the emotional system, it's like I'm amplifying that. Like you're amplifying the pressure. Great. Thanks. And you
Yeah.
mean I don't have it, but I feel like I have it times 100. It's like this kind of like really annoying life curse. You're like, what is this? I have to, but it's not. It's same with me with my undefined sacral. I'm kind of like, if I only had sacral energy, my life would be perfect. But it's like, that's not true. The wisdom potential is what we can come back to. Wherever you're undefined, I know it sounds like it's a bit of a pain, but that's because it's the not self mind that convinced you that not having root definition is a thing you can't do. Like you can't live. It's like, no, you're right. You're somebody who starts things from stillness. Imagine, the majority of the world starts things from pressure, from this like go. But what I usually say to people with undefined roots is just check if you're starting something from a place of stillness or pressure. If you're starting something from a place of this, like, it's probably safer to go into that realm than when you're doing it from that, oh, I'm just going to bust it out right now and put that pressure in. But what I do hear you describing is the very real physical experience for someone who has anywhere you're undefined. It's so real and so physical. I'm sure you thought that it was you, that you're like, that's my pressure, And it's like, no, it's so big because it's amplified. And so wherever we have this openness, wherever we take in the world, it's your wisdom potential. That's where you can teach even people like me who have the root pressure what stillness is like more, where it's like, okay. Not, you can't deal with everything with pressure because you don't produce the adrenaline. So you'll be more wise about when stress is appropriate and when it's appropriate to use that stress instead of using stress all the time. Like, for example, for me, I use stress to create value and purpose in my life. And I have a very consistent, only one way. I have one channel on my route and I produce stress through struggle. And that's how I make purpose in my life. But you can't, like, you're not designed that way. And so you can experience someone who has that way of living, and you can experience someone who has a different way of living with the root pressure. And then all of that comes together in your wisdom to say, we're not going to stress about this right now. That's not worth stressing about, instead of stressing on every single thing that comes through the amplification. Same with the ajna. It's like my wide open ajna can't attach to everything that comes through its mental space. It just can't. Like, I can't maintain it. But there can be wisdom about what ideas are actually good ideas. In the end, it's like the wisdom of that. You're not being the pressure, you're being wise about it. You're saying, yeah, I'm not going to do that. But it's such a visceral experience.
Yeah, it is. I'm like reflecting back on an experience that I had last year where I'd been going for so long that my body finally just stopped and
Wow.
I like really could barely do anything for about a month. I like just laid on the couch, like my body, I was so sick and like as I sat with it for a while and just said like, what's the wisdom here? Like, what is my body trying to teach me? And the answer was slow down.
That's root wisdom for sure. Like,
Yeah.
That's so intense though. And like to think, right? And this is how it gets really interesting when I see, and thank you for sharing that, because it's like a generator, an emotional, like those are both motors. You'd think this guy has energy and can do and create. But like you're saying, if you're acting from the not self and you're going based on the openness and not the definition, that's a generator can destroy their body as well. It's not only projectors. It's generators can go overboard and get so deeply injured, like you're describing. And so it's like, yeah, the openness is directing, or your definition is leading. And when you lead with the definition, you're less likely to get caught in those, yeah, dire situations. My goodness. But
It
we
was a
also need
battle,
them.
yeah. Yeah.
Need
It
those
was
times.
fun, and I love that idea, right? That the open centers are a place for us to develop wisdom. It's the
Yeah,
invitation for the development of how to be wise in this energetic space, which I think there might be like a natural tendency to say, "Oh, if only I was different," versus to say,
exactly.
what is my system's natural wisdom, like from my body, from my soul, to say, in this space, what wisdom can I share? What can I bring?
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. And I think it's when I hear people who, like you just now talking to me about that, it's like, that's a beautiful wisdom to share. Like, I, with my defined root, don't have that wisdom. I could pressurize you though. Like, if you want to start something, I can help you. But it's like, and so to know about those things and to know about those things in relationships, it really comes all full circle to be more empowering and strengthening in your relationships, because it's like, oh yeah, if your partner knows like you have an undefined root, then you could like joke about it sometimes, like, oh, don't pressure me, and like bring that humor into it as you learn about each other in your experiment in real time, and learn to respect each other as well. Part of the asking generators yes and no questions is a form of respect. And instead of telling generators what to do, like I still sometimes tell my kid what to do, and he's a generator and he's furious. Like the moment I say, do that, it's like he looks at me and I know I didn't ask. Like just by the way that it's like you didn't even ask. And then once you ask, you also have to be like in your relationships with your kids, friends, and family, and you know that your friend is a generator, you also have to start to get used to respecting their no, which I think comes into a whole thing with families and friends who are used to you being your old passive, say yes, do it against your sacral self. From a lot of generators that I've heard, it's like, my sacral didn't want to go to the family party. My sacral said no to the event. My sacral said no to this and this and this. And then all of a sudden, the pressure of relationships and the way that the relationship used to work becomes a difficult thing, because it's like, you never were like that before. And all of this. So that's it can go into those realms, because not everybody is on the same path, and you can be on a path, you can be with someone whom you love, who's your partner, but you're not on the same path in terms of that growth per se. And so you can get to points where they don't understand why you've 180'd your family and friends, and they don't like that you're respecting your sacral response, because it's not family values, it's not all of those things. And so it's a big task and ask and challenge for all of us to put some of that pressure aside and experiment with trusting the body, and trusting that those relationships, even though there might be on rocky things right now, that if they're right for you, that it will strengthen them over time. If you put it in. And if they're wrong because it was built on your not self being your not self, then you'll lose those relationships. And I lost a ton of relationships in the process of 2020 and that whole year on, for a variety of reasons, but it was for partially in that zone. It was like, I'm not going to do what I used to do, overgive, overprove, overly be there for people, things like that. And suddenly you're different and you're who you are, but they don't like that. So that becomes a very difficult challenge when it's like, you like who you are better. and you feel more aligned, but your relationships are on fire. And that doesn't feel very good. And it's very hard in that way too for a lot of people. So I do understand the whole human design experiment could bring up, like, you don't know what's going to happen for you because you don't know what your life is supposed to be bringing. And you kind of have to wait. And like you were saying, it's the waiting and you don't know what you're waiting for. It's uncomfortable.
It is uncomfortable sometimes. Yeah. But also so worth it to
Yeah.
be able to live in that space or create that space around you where the relationships and the environment support who you are that is really emerging from within.
Yeah, absolutely. It's worth it. And that's the thing. Like if you're gonna go on this journey and it's gonna be challenging at times, you might get through all of that and you get to experience your signature. And in human design, your signature is essentially like the highest emotional expression of your type. And for the generator, it's satisfaction. So you can go through that whole thing and everything along the way, how frustrating it was. But if you get through it, you'll get that satisfaction, and for the projector, it's success. So it's like if you get through it and you handle whatever life challenges, and sometimes you'll get bitter, but at the end of it, you should reach success if you're living in alignment. And whatever success is, I don't know. It's not necessarily money, right? And if you're a manifester, all you want in life is peace. But you're going to have to probably experience the not self emotional equivalent of anger all the time because you're so angry and you want peace and angry peace. So, I've seen generators move through frustration to satisfaction, and it is a satisfying thing to see. And projectors go from bitterness to success. And for the manifestors to go from anger to peace through the human design process. It's like maybe you're going to be frustrated at first, but if you're a generator, you're built for that. You're built to be frustrated on the right projects that you sacrally said yes to. Not frustrated on the things that you made a decision with your openness based on. That's the kind of generator frustration that the world needs less of. It's like, to be honest, all the undefined sacrals, we experience your frustration, we take it in. So what sometimes I can hardly go outside because we're in a huge city here and there's so many frustrated people on the street. It's just like I can hardly take it anymore. These generators, I want for them to respond and follow their response. And then they will just be lighter beings, and then all of us will be in this sort of thing. But that's why I'm in it too, because the projectors, I want to help generators, not only because I feel the frustration. It's not a selfish thing, maybe a bit, but it's because like I really want them to be successful. I want them to be satisfied. It's almost satisfying for me to see a generator go through all that frustration just to be satisfied. It's like when you watch a kid who's a generator who's so frustrated with like building blocks or something so simple, and then they build it and then they're so satisfied. And you're like, that's it. It's generators have such a simple mechanism. And then we complicate it with like all of these wants from our mind. And it's really like going back to the simplest mechanism. You're born with it. You came out of the womb with this generator imprint and you can just respond. And so in some ways, I kind of, like you were saying, the grass is always greener. I'm like, I don't have a response mechanism. I only pretend to have one because I've been conditioned. So I sometimes go, uh-huh, mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I'm noticing myself responding, but that's not my authority. And that's not, I just go, oh, that's the conditioning. I'm going, lots of responding. This conditioning. Yeah.
I am curious in this process of moving through the not self into that. I'm trying to like remember the word that you use, but where I'm moving to the other side of that. What roles do the gifts play in this whole experience?
You mean like the gifts of the openness and like the undefined
Yeah, so for
centers?
example, like in my human design chart, it says my most important gift is 26. And then I have like all of these other gifts in the different centers and so I'm just
Interesting.
curious, like
Yep.
what role do those gifts play in this whole experiment?
Hmm. Well, I'm not exactly sure what that particular website or chart would exactly mean by gifts. But what I think it means is that these are either hanging gates or channels that you have in your life force. So it's part of your definition. What actually is occurring, it might also be that it's planetary influences. So what you have when you look at your human design chart, on one side you'll see a whole list of planets and numbers, and it's like all these 50.6 and all of that beside each image of like astrological icons. And on one side, the black side, that's your personality imprint. So that's the imprint that you get the moment that your full body, toes and all, leave your mother when you're born. The other side of the chart is the red side, or your other color. It depends what site you're on, but it's usually black and red on the left-hand side of the chart. And that's your design imprint. And that imprint imprints your vehicle 88 degrees before you're born. I don't recall, but it's about 3 months before you're born, roughly. So you get your genetic imprint at that time. And yet at this point in the womb, you have no personality. You're just a design body ready to be imprinted when you come earthside. So astrology is everything on that personality side. Astrology only looks at the personality. It has the sun, moon, all the nodes. So you might be familiar, if you've looked into astrology, with all of those imprints. On the other side, it's similar, but it's all the planets that are, again, all the same planets, but it's influencing your genetics. And so both are now influencing, which was a totally mind-blowing thing to me, because I had been deep in astrology and I'm like, oh my gosh, wait, there's one imprint for the body and one for the personality. That makes sense. I was trying deeply to sort out these two things for many years, and astrology couldn't get it all there because it was just the personality piece. And so when you're looking at those two things, you'll have potentially gates and hanging gates that are what is called unconscious, which is on your design. So these are unconscious because it's not subconscious. It's unconscious because it's not something that you can actually manipulate, change, or work with, so to speak. It's something that you come to be aware of in yourself over time, or usually what other people notice in you more than you notice in yourself. Whereas if you're on the personality side, it's where we kind of feel like that's who I am. Like if you look at the personality, you're like, oh yeah, I can see that. That's how you usually relate to yourself, is by your personality, which would make sense because it's everything you can say. So there's this interesting thing that could be really fun in the human design deconditioning process, and understanding, what is me and what's not, is that you're looking at everything in the red is something that you can't really manipulate. So there might be parts of yourself that you don't like that are in the red side because you haven't properly, with your conscious personality, witnessed those things yet. Maybe you have, because usually by the time you're 30, 40, 50, you've come to see some things in life. But those two imprints can really provide a lot. So you have all of the planets. And if you know about neutrinos, this is sort of what the basis of human design is based on, is neutrinos, which is the essence of stars that comes out of each star and planet that influences everything that happens here on Earth. There's essentially, we're swimming in like a neutrino ocean. I guess there's so many I don't know how many neutrinos on Earth, but basically like they're in us, on us, around us at all times. So they say we're swimming in neutrinos because they pass through our bodies, because they're particles that have mass, but they're so, so tiny. So these neutrinos that come from the sun have the biggest impact on our personality because the neutrinos are the most prominent. So 70% of our personality is our sun imprint. So you can look at what gate your sun is, and that's where you would see the first number, like let's say it's 16. So you would have gate 16, sun sign, and then you would see that point and then a number. And that's where we go into the I Ching, which is part of human design as well. It's human design is a amalgamation of modalities: I Ching, astrology, Kabbalah, all of this. So you'll go into the line, and that's where the I Ching really comes in. And I think that's a fun place to also delve, because the I Ching has an incredible vast depth of wisdom that has been accumulate. I used to do the I Ching oracle for many, many years before human design. So when I learned human design, I was like, oh, great, I can just transfer this, what I was using to generate wisdom for myself, into now what is the human design gates. So you can look at all of the imprints of your personality and like the neutrinos that Mercury gives you, the neutrinos that every single planet gives you some sort of uniqueness. And there are many different ways to break down, I guess, suppose what the gifts are, where you're looking at like your Jupiter personality, for example, could be considered a gift. And anything like that. There's a I don't want to get too complex, but there's a bunch of different ways to break down how the planets are situated and organized. And when you look at how that affects your personality, and then witnessing the design, allowing the design to sort of lead and becoming a witness to whatever's going on the vehicle side.
Such a great invitation there of being able to witness the things that are within us. Like there's such a like a beauty in that invitation. It's of like like witnessing is more than seeing. It's
Yes.
like it's also allowing that to be fully present, acknowledging it, honoring it. So I love that
Yeah,
those gates are opportunities to really witness facets of ourselves that we may not
exactly.
be aware of.
And they may not be like things that, like, let's say your personality particularly wants. And, like, for example, I'll choose one of mine. Like, I can be controlling. And when I was a kid, a few people said that to me before, but it's never how I saw myself. I was always kind of upset and felt bad when someone was like, "You're a little controlling," And I was like, "Gosh, I'm so sorry." Like, and I would go into, as a child, shame and guilt spirals about, why am I like this? Why do people see me that way? I don't want to be that way. And then I would try so hard to be considerate and blah, 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 because I was wanting to be against what people saw in me, which was just who I was. Come to understand through human design and just relaxing through my life. But human design really pointed it out that I'm controlling, that I have this ability, and it's not a bad thing, but it can come out in ways that other people don't like. But it's not inherently a bad thing, because some people will want you to control things for them, and it can be a positive thing for the right people. And, so there's so many unique human traits that you can see in the gates and the lines. Like, I've learned that there are people in the world who are designed to sweep things under the rug. That they're meant and they're designed to just like not deal with some of the things, like I struggle with a person who I was like, why can't they just face the problems? Why are they always just below the surface? I did a bit of investigating, and when I found that out, I'm now in the process of coming to just accept that person and not be so bewildered by it and confused and stuff like that. Or someone whom I'm also healing through this process of human design, who is a friend who always rejects everything at first, is negative about everything, like rejects, rejects, rejects. So it's like, you come to them with a cool idea, you come to them with an exciting thing, you come to them with your positivity, and immediately you get slammed. Immediately you're like, why am I in this conversation? Are you not my friend? And why would someone get into this like resistance with me? And different things like that. Come to understand that, digging deeper in their design, this person has that in their personality, and they actually reject everything at first and then come around after that. So even recently with this person, it was like, I went out with something, they resisted it. 2 3 days later, they left me a message talking about it. And so I'm not sure that they're aware that that is who they are. And I would love to help people who have these things, like myself, and we all do, where it's these things that it's like, I don't know if I like that. Or it's challenging in a friendship. Like, can you imagine having a friend who just constantly rejects what you're saying? Like, no one, it's going to be hard because, but I want to be a better friend. I want to be a more understanding person. So I go deeper to find out where this is a little bit of who they are. I'm not saying they're, not self. We all have these parts. but I want to find out what's the consistency, because they're consistent with it. They're able to do it all the time. And so what the gates and the channels and the lines really help me with is that through the I Ching understanding, it's like there's so many human traits that are strange but helpful and add to the human tapestry of what it means to exist right now, and have to, some people have to be those people. Some people have to be the ones who are pessimistic at first and then come around, or who are always pessimistic. You know, my son is a third line personality, and they can be very much mistake making types. And so they end up getting this persona of mistaking. And so they end up being pessimistic. It's like, oh, this won't work, you know, because it won't, because they're here to make a mistake. So they know, oh, it's not going to work. And so to say to someone like that, who's designed to be pessimistic, to be like, oh, cheer up, why are you always so negative? It's like you're giving them these sort of conditions that who they are is not okay. And it's like, yeah, you're pessimistic, but let's do it anyway. And you'll see, it'll turn around, you know, something like that. Or to my son, I'll say, you're pessimistic, but let's do it anyway. And if you make the mistake, you'll learn something. So, like, it's like the pessimism's cool, but it's not your authority. Things like that. It's like, I really want to be able to, yeah, not be so annoyed by people's qualities all the time. And I mean, I'm a projector, so I've always been curious about why people do the things they do. But that doesn't mean that I'm free from the frustration or the annoyance of like some of the qualities that I can't make sense of right away.
I love that image that you gave of the tapestry of human experience. It's a very evocative image. It's like to really consider the nuance and the idiosyncrasy of the lived experience of each individual, and how approaching the world with this in mind can enhance curiosity and compassion and connection with other people. Sometimes being that maybe you and I should be less in the same space.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
but understanding that and saying, "Hey, I love and see and appreciate you for who you are. I don't need you to
Yes.
be anybody different."
Yes,
And it's o
exactly.
and it's okay for us to live on the other side of town from each other. It's
Yeah,
okay for us to only hang out once every 6 months. That's totally fine.
I love that.
But that capacity to see the beauty in the human experience. So I
Yeah.
really love that image that you painted there.
Yeah, I mean, I have a background working with people with mental illness and homelessness and addictions. The moment that I walked in the door of began my journey back then, I thought, I'm going to save people's lives. I'm going to do all this. And when I came into that world, I was slammed by the reality of people's real life experiences, not from a book. I suddenly was humbled immediately into simply recognizing the person right in front of me. That everything else about what I thought about recovery, healing, living, what success is, was just blown up. Immediately, I was put in front of someone, and I'm like, all I need to do right now is recognize who you are. And we go from there. And I spent the majority of those 8 years just recognizing people. And yeah, I was there to help them all these little things, but I wasn't there to get them off drugs or put them on this other path. Like, we did all these things, but everything at the core of it was just recognition. That's really like, to do anything else, they need that first. They needed it so badly. It was like, so to put that into the tapestry, it was like, well, these people's experiences are valid, and look at how awful it is. It's hard to be like, that's a part of the world. You know, that's a part. It's not the kids' version of the world tapestry. It's like actually painful and really dark. And so I always feel grateful when, because I have some capacity to go into that level of the human tapestry that is kind of dark, that is kind of uncomfortable and unsettling and odd, to be grateful to go in there when someone ever shares that with me, like the darkness, the depth of that existence and that life that they live, that is traumatic and all of those things, but it's with purpose. It's not, you know, their life fills out the entire world. So yeah, it's because of those sufferings, and to be able to go into that level, that has sort of put me in this place here, to be able to, using human design to help people in those places as well.
Beautiful. It's a beautiful example, I think. that we can all learn from, that we can look into the realness of the human experience and come through on the other side with more compassion and capacity to help other people.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a great place to like bring things to a close, if that feels okay with you.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I could go on way too long, so it
But
feels like a perfect close.
I have so many more questions and I wish we had all day. but
Fair enough.
but I would love if you could share with people like anything that you're working on currently and how people can connect to you.
Sure. Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, amanda.humandesign. I'm also on Substack now. I've put out a few articles there just under my name, Amanda O'Donovan, and my publication is The Individual Path. So follow me on those two places because soon, and actually I haven't mentioned it yet, so this is new, but yeah, I'm going to be putting out something for relationships and helping people with relationships, partnerships. Yeah, it'll be a surprise, fun workshop.
It's amazing. And I read at least one of your recent Substack posts. It was really, really good. I learned a lot
Thank
from it.
you.
So, yeah. So,
Awesome. Thank you so much.
yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time today.
Oh,
And I'm
it's my
so
pleasure.
grateful. Yeah.
Thank you for this conversation. I mean, thank you for holding the space and the emotionality and yeah, just putting it all together. So thank you.
That brings us to the end of this incredible conversation with Amanda O'Donovan. I really hope this episode has sparked some curiosity about your own design and how you're wired to move through the world, make decisions, and cultivate a life that feels aligned and true to you. Human design isn't about fitting into someone else's mold. It's about peeling back the layers of conditioning and stepping into the most natural, effortless version of yourself. And if this conversation resonated with you, I'd invite you to take some time to explore your own chart, experiment with what feels right, and notice how resistance shifts when you start trusting yourself more deeply. As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts. You can connect with me on social media, share what stood out to you, and if you have any questions, send them either my way or send them to Amanda. We might just be able to answer them in a future episode. And if you found this conversation valuable, consider leaving a review or sharing this episode with someone who could benefit. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and most of all, keep delving deep and embracing the journey.